Ask the Podcast Coach for August 2nd, 2025.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Carlson from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy to be back on a Saturday morning. I hope everybody enjoyed their week off last week, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, I was all set to, we were going to do Riverside, and it's weird. I got there in the day, and the hotel Wi-Fi was not bad, like not great, but I was like, okay, this will work. And then I went back later at night and was like, oh, wait, when there's actually people here. And then I tried to connect with my phone, and I had like 1.5 bars, and I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to try this. So it was fun to be back, but, and we actually got decent weather here in Ohio today. It's nice and cool after being
here.
Yeah. So, it's time to, grab a hot cup of Java and head to the back porch maybe. And there you go. And that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co, because you got to remember, they're going to see you before they hear you, and you got to get them to stop the scroll. And how are you going to do that? With a great piece of artwork, or when we might talk about websites today, maybe, but when you're trying to look professional, you get that one first impression. Well, you want somebody who's going to make you look amazing. And that is Mark. He's been podcasting since 2013. If you're watching this, it says branded over 250 podcasts. That's closer to 500 now. This is an old slide. But he's won awards for his graphics and his web design. And you're just going to get service that you don't get other places, like, I don't know, Fiverr. He's going to sit down with you one-on-one and make sure that your artwork, your website matches just your brand. And if you don't have a brand, well, that's what he's here for. You do the podcasting, he does the branding. Check him out, podcastbranding.co. Tell him Dave and Jim sent you.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week, Dragon. Yeah, Bruce Lee, right? You want to know? Yeah, it's a good story. The Bruce Lee story. His guest, Matthew Polly, is on, and you can check it out today. I'll get centered on the camera there. There we go. You can check it out today out there, based on a true story podcast.com. And Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
All right. Apparently, I got this backwards. Nice catch, Uncle Mar. Backwards. They hear you before they see you. No, they see you before they hear you. So if I got that backwards, it's my week back. I'm a little rusty.
I don't know. In an audio standpoint, sometimes they do hear you before they see you, right?
Yeah. Ken Blanchard saying, decide to come back to podcasting this week, creating a new show and all that came aboard for some inspiration and updated on some knowledge. Well, there you go. Yeah. If you stepped away from, I always tell people, they're like, hey, I'm going to cancel my pod page. We're done with our show and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, we're here when you start up your new one. And they're like, no, we're done. And I'm like, nah, we're kind of, I always picture that scene in The Godfather, like, I thought it was out, and then they pull me back in. It's like, it's not a matter of when, but, or not if, but when. So keep that in mind. And I thought we would start today. Hey, it's fun with math, kids. You ready? It's because I got this today. Hey, you got paid from Red Circle from June to July 31st. The net amount, $3.74. So this kind of ties in with the Time Magazine. I realize that's a little old in the tooth now, but they came out with their top 100 podcasts, of which they didn't include Joe Rogan or like the one super, it's a super left-leaning, Last House on the Left, but that's not it. God Save the Pod, some left-leaning. Really popular shows were not on this list. So if you've never seen this is how I always say, hey, if somebody's saying you can make money from day one, I always go, well, usually it's somewhere around $5 CPM. So I downloaded my numbers from, in this case, Red Circle. I got a whopping 685 downloads that month, and I made $3.47. Now I'm spending $9 a month in hosting over there. But if we go, hey, let's take the $3.47, and if we divide that by our total number of downloads, that is the amount I'm making per download. So if I take that number and multiply it by 1,000, you get your cost per 1,000, which is $5.06.5. So there you go. So when I say you make about $5 CPM, that's where I get that number from. And so there you go. Likewise, if people wonder where these questions come from, I put those on the screen to go, look, I got this from Reddit. This is why we're asking that. And speaking of that, if you are, if you have a question, you can throw it in the chat room, or you can go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/question, where I do have the Rode Call Me feature, which now apparently is out of beta, which is interesting because if you make a website like, askthepodcastcoach.com/question, people will click that during the week when you're not doing the live show. So, Tim, if you're listening, I kept seeing Tim come in, but I didn't have a channel set up to use the Call Me feature, but I would just look over and I'd see like, hey, Tim's on the line. And I'm like, oh, I'm not set up to receive phone calls. I am now. But that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I have yet to look at the list. I've just heard everybody and their brother talk about this Time Magazine list of, and the problem is how they framed it. It was the top podcasts of all time. And I was like, wait, you're, and I forget all the ones they missed, but I've just heard everybody outraged. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what people do when you go, Time what? And you're like, magazine. It was these things made out of paper that people used to read in doctors' offices. And, you got a lot of people talking about Time Magazine and how stupid they are. So I was like, well, if the goal was to get people talking about Time Magazine, congrats. But on the other hand, you've kind of lost a lot of credibility, because I think I believe they put Serial, and I was like, okay, there's one that deserves to be on the list. But maybe and I guess they had a whole page explaining how they picked what they picked, but everybody was losing their mind on that. And I was like, well, that's interesting. That I don't know. I guess it was a slow news day, something like that.
It's tough to say all time, right? I mean,
yeah.
One, the industry's not that old, right?
Right.
But yeah, boy, that is, yeah. Well, you often wonder. I threw the link in the chat if you want to take a look at it.
Oh, nice.
They're listed in alphabetical order. When I got there, I was like, no, I don't think so. But on the page there, and then they got them separated out. They've got some, some pretty good podcasts in there that have done well. 100 of all time is a tough. Yeah, there we go. Is a tough. It's a tough row to hoe.
Like,
when you think about the selection.
When I see New Heights with Travis, the Kelsey brothers, and I'm like, okay, I'll get it. That's very popular. It really should be called, Is There Anything About Taylor Swift in This Week's? That should be the name of the show. But and Two Dope Queens, which I'll give them credit. They've been, they've jumped from network to network, so they must be doing. And acquired when I worked at Libsyn, had a really a large amount of people consuming their premium stuff. They were using Glow.fm, which, by the way, Libsyn put out a thing, Glow.fm, which, for the record, hasn't accepted new customers for some time. They are shutting that down, and they recommend you use Supercast. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, some of these binge mode, Call Her Daddy's on here. So I'm like, okay, Call Her Daddy, but not Joe Rogan. So it's not that you don't want to promote anybody that is, hardcore history. There you go. That's one that's been around forever. But some of these I've never heard of. But, that's, whatever. That's okay. I don't listen to I don't listen to a lot of true crime, and of course that's one of the most popular genres. I just to me, I'm like, do we really? Do I like Good Hang with Amy Poehler? Now, come on, I've listened to that show, and it is the epitome of a famous person talking to another famous person. And I've never walked away going, oh, wow, I didn't know that. It is what it is. Like when she had Seth Meyers on, which, two SNL alums, I was like, okay, but I didn't really learn any cool behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of advertising on this as well. If you haven't noticed, I was like, oh, I see why they made this list. Like every six, shows here, they're putting up a bunch of ads, but it's not a horrible show. But I would not put Amy Poehler as the top, in the top 100 of all time. So, yeah, interesting.
That's us being grumpy, though, right?
That is grumpy. Back in my
That's us
day.
being grumpy about this.
Yeah. So, we did get a question here. Let me scroll down. I want to do a walk and talk through a museum exhibition with an artist about their artwork. Can I use the Hollyland microphone for that? Yes. Or would I need a separate device? No. Basically, you could clip one on you and one on your guest. I should have had mine. Mine's in my suitcase. And then I guess with the phone, if you want to do video, you might want to get not so much one of these little handheld gizmo, although that would be handy, but I forget what it's called, where it makes things smooth.
Gimbal. It's a gimbal.
Yeah, get a gimbal if you're going to be doing a lot of walking and talking. But yeah, that would definitely work. It's then video, so that's more of a YouTube thing, which again, nothing wrong with YouTube, but that's not going to make much sense when you're listening to it and they go, well, you can see here where I blended the shades here into the thing. And that's why, so as they got to be really good at explaining their art so that it triggers the theater of the mind, or, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Jim?
Yeah. Going live remote in a location where you're walking around, unless, this is my personal opinion, unless the value of the video is so high, like being in that place, seeing the things that they're seeing, or you're going to produce it, so you're going to add some B-roll in, or some of the, I find the quality of those interviews is not as good as when you're sitting in a studio talking to somebody. Like there's something about that those out and about conversations that they're not as crisp, they're not as clear. There's things going on around you.
Yeah.
There's, you can't control the noise. Now, if that's the only way you can do it, then, we used to say, man on the street type stuff, right? Where you do it that way. But I've listened to a lot of interviews done that way, and it comes on and you hear the background noise of the crowd or the people, this little chatter behind things or whatever, and I think it's distracting. I just don't think generally, in most cases or a lot of cases, maybe you're getting the best possible interview. I'd much rather if you're going to interview that person, I'd just rather get them behind a mic in a quiet place that you can have that conversation. So, but if that's not available and you can only do it in person, you got to go with what you got to go with. I think we thought for a long time those impromptu in public kind of interview things were cool, and they kind of were. There's not a lot of, it just seems like those interviews wander. They just kind of wander around a little bit. It's hard to keep them crisp. I don't know. Your thoughts, Dave?
Well, yeah, Jeff says, I agree about the quality on live remotes, but people love seeing live content. Lou Mangello just did a tour, like behind the scenes of Disney. And it was like, ooh, I never get to see this. But I will say, I've never understood. Like I just had somebody, I think it's one of the questions I clipped about doing a podcast in their car. And I'm like, not quite sure how that's going to work.
But it's distracting, right?
Yeah. we do. Ralph, I'll get to your question in a second. Right now, I've got to figure out how to bring somebody in from Zoom because Chuck is in the green room. And let me, if we go here, can I drag Chuck? That would be, it says add, yes.
Drag him. That's not very.
I know.
It's like screaming in here.
Now, can I just drag Chuck over here? It looks that way, maybe. And except we have Fathom. I don't want Fathom. I want Chuck. Here we go.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, we
show, Dave.
That's it. Well, and now I lost Chuck's spot. Oh, here. There we go.
There he
is. Good enough.
There's Chuck. Chuck, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Beautiful.
Okay.
How are you?
I can hear you, and I dropped off of the LinkedIn feed when I figured out how to do this.
Ah, excellent. Well, what's your question? What can we help you with?
Well, by way of background, I guess I'm considered something of an OG podcaster in that I've been doing it every day since 2012.
Wow.
So over 3,000 episodes, et cetera. And I'm just curious the value you guys believe of contests, because I've never been somebody that particularly wants to enter contests. But as a journalist, which I have been for my entire career, and somebody who's helped a major national organization start its contest, which doesn't do anything about podcasting, I'm also fairly suspect of everybody's methodology. So I finally bit the bullet and said, okay, we'll spend a little bit of money to enter this contest, which a couple of people have told me about and has some things that might do some stuff for us, I guess, if we got some promotion and we won. And got everything together, got it done for them. And I'll just point out, then they extended their deadline.
Oh.
Now I'll point out, I got my stuff done and I did it on time. And I'll have no idea who's going to beat us.
Yeah.
Well, let's make an assumption that somebody does. And that somebody does because they got an extra month to get their stuff together so that these guys could make their money. So in spite of the fact that people said, Chuck, if you're going to enter one, this is the one. Guess what? I'm not so much feeling that I got they didn't come back to me and say, hey, you know, since you busted your tail and got it done on time, enter an extra category for free, do whatever. Nope. They just went out and got more business. Frankly, the only reason I care that I win is that I stupidly put money on it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris Nessie says, if you're going to do a contest, make it super easy to enter. That's true. But the integrity here is like right down the toilet.
Chuck, when you say contests, you're really talking about awards. Show.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. I think.
Yeah.
So
that's what it is.
Well, hold on. When you first said contest, I think a lot of folks thought, hey, enter to win a battery or enter to win, right? So just so that's what I first thought of. And I think that Chris's comment was, around that, but you're talking about award shows and those kinds of things, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just know there's the Black Podcast Awards, and I just heard from James Cridlin that they've extended their deadline for submission, which, call me crazy, makes me think there aren't enough submissions.
Well, my question, Dave, about that, and I'm a business journalist. That's what I do. I talk business all the time, and I'm fairly known in the business ethics side. My problem is not actually that the awards, and would you like me to name them? It's up to you whether I name.
If you want to. I mean, I don't.
So we're talking the Signal Awards.
Okay.
Right? My problem is not that they extended their deadline. My problem is that they extended their deadline basically after their deadline. In other words, they waited until here's our deadline. And then they said, we're extending our deadline, which is proof you didn't get enough in.
Right.
Yeah. And frankly, if you were going to have integrity about that, you'd say, hey, we're not going to give out an award in a category where we got 2 entries and we don't have whatever, or maybe we will and we'll say we only got 2 entries, but they're fabulous. But if we don't give out an award, we'll refund your money. That's an okay way of doing it. We didn't get enough to play. The game doesn't go on. That's fine. But the problem is not if the Black podcasters that you were talking about, if they extended their deadline, but they did it a week before their deadline, that may be saying, yeah, we're not getting much in, but it's not saying we're changing the game for all the participants.
Right. Yeah, that's I mean, here's the big, well, obviously it depends on the award, but if you win one, you can say I'm an award-winning podcast. I got a couple behind me, but it's, have I ever had somebody say, "Oh, I hired you, Dave, because you're an award-winning podcast"? It looks good on a resume,
But I wouldn't even think, I can't imagine that I would put it on my resume. I guess we would put it on our one sheet.
Yeah.
For us, the interesting thing for us is that I'll, without blowing my own horn or doing whatever, again, longtime journalist, I'll stack our guest list up against anybody in the financial world. We're as good or better. Okay. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
But we'll see things where it's like, here's the 10 best business podcasts or whatever. We're on some of those lists. We're not on some of those lists. I'm not that concerned about the list. What I'm always concerned about is, did you know about us when you excluded us? Right? Like if we've done our job and you said, I'm going to make a list of the 10 best business podcasts, and you decide we're not one of them, and here you were talking about lists and whatever.
Yeah.
If you know about us and we're not your cup of tea or what have you, awesome. If you don't know about us, I want to figure out what we're doing wrong, that, because I know the writers in some cases and whatever. I'm like, you did a Google search and we weren't on any of the first 5 pages, or we weren't, like, what are we doing wrong?
Well, and Jody brings up a great point. It's not cheap to enter your show into the Signal Awards. So
no,
even more like, hey, like, that's not fair. I guess you could always.
And by the way, I will point out that because we live in a world where you don't know how it's done, I was reluctant to say it. I have no delusions that I necessarily would win or anything else. I will simply point out that in my head, I wasn't going to complain about this until the end of the process, right? Because now they're going to go off and judge, and I'm not going to be the one who says, hey, if I didn't win, it's because they heard me complaining about them.
Yeah.
But, oh, by the way, what they did ethically, not that good.
No. And that's where, you could always ask for your money back, like, hey, you changed the rules and I don't feel comfortable now. Can I unregister as a potential winner? I don't know. It's icky.
I kind of consider the money that I put into it my lesson learned.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's not to say, wow, if I win, I'll enter again or what have you. For us, it's very simple. For us, if we were to win, the benefit is not the trophy or whatever. The benefit would be the exposure.
Right.
The benefit would be that if somebody considers us to be a good podcast for, say, a commute, but we know that they're not hearing about us otherwise, and we'd only be a good podcast for somebody who wants to hear about business on a commute. But we're an hour-long show every weekday. We're kind of built for your commuters. That's the kind of thing where if we were to win an award in a category like that, somebody go, I've never heard of these guys. That's the thing about the award that I'm wondering if it's worthwhile. Because I know nobody's going to you, Dave, as much as everyone I know in the business respects you. And we've interacted a few times in ways that I'm sure you don't remember my name, but I respect you too, or I wouldn't be here. I know nobody's going to you because you got an award on the wall. That's why I've never really entered any of these things.
Yeah.
But it's not about the award. I'm an award-winning podcaster. I hope I never actually use that on my show realistically, other than to say, oh, we did get this thing, or we whatever. If you hire that's not why somebody's going to come to my show.
Yeah.
And that's not why somebody's going to your business, but it might be why somebody hears about my show. And that's the part of, is it worthwhile to pursue something like
that? You don't have to answer this if you don't want, but Chris is wanting to know, how much was it to enter?
It's based on categories.
Okay.
So you decide that. That's why I said, you could have spent thousands of dollars.
Wow.
I did not.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I spent a couple $100, et cetera. But when you sit down and you look at the list of the categories they have, if you had said, well, which ones, like, that's how I approach it. Which ones could I be part of? Let's look at all of them. If I had done that, I would have spent thousands of dollars. And that's why I also say that in that you did what you were supposed to do, you got it right. We're going to extend the entries. Well, what are you giving me? You just made it, theoretically at least, but probably more than theoretically, you made it less likely for me to win. You brought in more people to the pool, right?
Yeah.
If we said we were having a closed lottery, you can win my podcast. I'm selling tickets for you to own it. I'm selling 100 tickets at $1,000 each, right? If I then go, but I'm selling an extra 500, you didn't get your $1,000 worth of, that's the thing, is that had they come back and said, hey, you did it all right, since we've extended the deadline, take 2 extra categories, tell us which ones you want to be thrown into. That's your value proposition, something along those lines.
Yeah. And Chris has a good point. You could always go this route, like don't mess with a journalist with a passion. So you could.
They had early bird deadlines on this thing. This is like, it was cheaper the earlier you entered, and then the prices went up, and then they extended the deadline.
And right? that posed a different problem for me.
Yeah.
Which was, in my case, it was talking to a couple of people who I know and respect, and we were having some discussions about backroom things. And one of them had entered one and found that they got a little bit of play in places they hadn't had it before. Mm-hmm. Had they had that conversation with me at time for the early bird deadlines, the cheapskate in me probably would have said, okay, let's go do this right now. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. And literally, we're all running podcasts on a shoestring or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at going, what's the best use of my money? And I don't know that I felt that this was the best use of my money in terms of promoting the podcast or what have you, but it was something different than what we're doing.
Right.
And then, like I said,
let's try it and see what happens. Yeah.
Right. And then I saw the things that said, hey, we've extended the deadline. And I'm like, okay, that's definitely not the best use of money.
Yeah. Jody Krangle, who's a voiceover person, she says, my podcast won a Sovas award in 2024. And that trophy was not cheap. It was over $400. And she goes, and I'm Canadian. That's a big ouch. Yeah. So it's some of these get really, really expensive.
Let's ask the follow-up question there, Dave.
Yeah.
Which is, beyond the trophy on the wall, was there a benefit to your podcast or to your business from saying that you won the award? Because I don't need to do this for ego. I've been doing this a long time. I would love to have more people listening to the show, but I'm going to wake up tomorrow and do the show, on our first day in 2012, we got 2 downloads, and none of them were me, by the way. Right. But we had we had guests that people would go like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking to that guy. So I'm not doing this like for the thrill. So that's the question to that person right there who said, I spent the 400 and whatever, having won the award, and congratulations. Was there any benefit to your business? And I'm sorry, Dave, I do not mean to hijack your show today.
No, that's in theory. This is exactly what we want. People to come in, ask a question, and then we talk about it. So
notice in theory. In practice, I just hijacked your show.
No, beautiful. And I'm looking at the everybody's saying what you should do to get them back is it would literally be cheaper to start your own award show full of fake information and get the same amount of credibility from the listeners. I was like, well, that's a thing. To quote James Cridlin, I always love people like, well, that's a thing. And I'm like, yes, it is. So yeah, it's hard to say if it's worth it or not. I guess it depends on your budget, but that's, and I wouldn't want to do an award show. Todd Cochran, who does the podcast awards, like, has gotten death threats because he found somebody who had not cheated, but boy, they went right to the line. They wrote some code so that when you clicked on it, it went to the website and automatically voted for them, which wasn't against the rules, but nobody else was doing that. And, it also makes you want to go, maybe make it easier to vote next time, Todd, so people don't have to write a script. But, and mind you, I think if you're looking at contests, right? Right.
You're trying to look and say, is this a contest that's just a popularity contest and it's done by vote online? Is this a judged or juried contest? There are things that give a contest credibility. Like I said, I'm a member of the governors for what it's now called the Society for Advancing Business Editing and Writing, but it was the Society for American Business Editors and Writers. I'm a past president. And I was the guy who started our journalism contest. Again, not,
Right.
I mean, I'd love it if they wanted to add a podcast category because it would be judged and it's an entry fee that only covers this is what we got to do to be able to, make a trophy and pay our judges for the lunch on the day that they all spend together doing whatever, et cetera. That's far different from it's a bunch of $100 to be able to enter and what have you. So that's the side of that business.
Jody says it's fun to say award-winning podcast. She goes, but did it get me more listeners? She has no idea. So until somebody, and I guess that's the thing, it's hard to track.
What about the other side of this, right? How much, when you as a podcaster, if you go to a podcaster's group or you sit in on whatever, and somebody introduces themselves as an award-winning podcast, do you actually, like, without knowing what the award is or whatever, do you just totally discount that? It's the same as I don't care whose lists I'm on, right? Like I don't ever say, oh, Forbes, I was on this list from Forbes or whatever, or I was not on this list from Bankrate or whatever. Or I think I was on, I wasn't, was, whatever. I don't ever say any of that stuff. But again, to me, when I know that they've gone out and said, hey, we're going to hire somebody, have them do a piece and say, these are our 10 favorite, whatever. I want to know if I could, that I was considered. And then if I made it, great. If I didn't make it, great. But that's like, I'm hoping that whatever happens in this contest, this award that I entered, that they judge us seriously and that they're asking the right questions, which is, if we're talking about a podcast for a commute, well, obviously, if you love true crime and you hate business or money, you're not going to be interested in mine. But I hope that the judge is able to say, wait, if this was my subject matter, this is where I'd want to go. And that's part of what you also don't know when you're doing this stuff is like, who's that? What's the credibility of the person who's making that decision?
Yeah. Ralph says people assume that award-winning means something because most people believe the hype. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I've heard of the Signal Awards, not a ton, but at least I've heard the name Signal Awards. I've also heard of the Webbies, and there are a couple ones out there and I think that's really one of the deciding factors of, do I put my money in to register for this or not, is like, what's the reputation of the awards? I'm trying to think if I knew of any that were basically like, if you registered, you won, because it was really expensive. And I was like, so I don't want to do that. So that's I guess the deciding factor of if I do win this. But then again, it's hard to track. It's not like, put in the coupon code award winning when you like that's the fun part.
Well, in all of that, that's the very funny side of how, we sort of all see this, right? I mean, when you use the phrases that we use that get us credibility, right? I heard somebody at the last FinCon who was talking about how they had gotten exposure and they were naming a number of newspapers. And that meant that they had been quoted in those places once or twice.
Right.
I was a syndicated columnist for 30 years. I ran in those places for every week for decades. And I never sort of thought like, and you could have read me in, the LA Times or whatever. Like it never would have occurred to me to list every place that I was in, yet it occurred to them to list every place that they were quoted. And probably they got more credibility trading off of that than I did by saying I was a national syndicated columnist. Yeah. So it is part of the, how do we spin it, cut it, slice it, dice it, and dress it up.
Yeah.
But I can't be the only one who has sat there and said, okay. And by the way, since entering and whatever, you could imagine that I'm getting a few more things in my mail, in my feeds, in whatever about, don't forget this contest, this award.
Oh yeah.
And I am hard pressed to see that I'll ever do it again.
Yeah.
But again, it was worth throwing it up there right up until the moment where they did that. And then I said, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's only one way to find out. And, you know, you took the steps. Well, speaking of exposure, where can we find your show?
You can find us. Anyways, Money Life with Chuck Jaffe is the show. And the world's worst podcast website is moneylifeshow.com, which probably I should have taken the money for the contest, the awards thing, and put it into the web upgrade that we're about to have.
There you go. Pod page for the win? No, probably not. Not if you're spending lots of money, but
well, so that's an interesting question, Dave.
Okay.
And this is another thing. And maybe if you, again, I don't mean to hijack your show.
This is what we're doing.
The reason I have not updated my webpage, and again, and it's moneylifeshow.com. Please go see it. It's horrible.
It's a great commercial.
But the reason, one of the things that happened is that we do 1,000 interviews a year.
1,000?
So when people say like,
Holy cow.
do you what do you use to manage guests? We built our own system. It is incredibly efficient. And people go, oh my goodness, that's super expensive. No, we hired a guy in the Ukraine who basically built our system for us. And trust me, if you think that you're hiring and knew exactly what we wanted, built it for us, it's worked really well. It's starting to get old and rickety. And unfortunately, our hacker in the Ukraine is part of the Ukraine's hacker army and does not have time to work on my business podcast, which I understand, but I'm still hoping we could get him back at some point. Right.
I have seen worse. I will say that Stitcher is no longer with us, so you can take that off the bottom.
Yeah, no, that's part of the problem is that we can't figure out how to get that picture out of there. And there's a bunch of things that are happening, but it's not even the website. Because remember, Dave, what I'm saying is the front end, the stuff that you guys see is much less important to me than the calendar functions. Because just to give you an idea, if you had been on my show in 2014, so 2 years in, we would have, and you came back tomorrow, I could type Dave Jackson, search, it would immediately get every bit of information we had, bring it back in and populate everything I need to be prepped for you. Tells me when you were on the show, everything else that you were doing. Also allows us to put a code in that when the interview is done, connects it to your interview, how we've named it internally. And when my producer is finished with the show, he hits send, the magical system works and goes, all the interviews are ready to send out to the guests. Shall I send them now? And he goes, yes. And you get everything automatically. So with 1,000 guests a year, we've automated stuff that nobody else was even thinking about back in 2012.
Well,
so that's a part of it, is that on the one hand, I want to do the stuff that goes to the public. And on the other hand, what is important to me every single day that I cannot live without is the back end stuff. And I can tell you, I've talked to some web designers who are like, oh, I don't know that I can do that.
Well, and just to make a small pod page commercial, we make a page for all of your guests. So when you're like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Smarty Pants, you should come on my show. Here are all the guests that have been on the show. And then each guest gets their own page with their social and such and a link to their episode. This is all automatic. And if you're on our premium plan, we will notify the guest when the episode is added to the website. So just something to think about, just to let you know. $59 a month.
Again, we built all of that ourselves.
Well,
basically,
if you don't want to do that, check out Podpage. So excellent. All right, my friend. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good to meet you, Chuck. Thanks for coming on.
We'll see you.
You want me to come back when the Signal Awards come out and tell you how it turned out?
Only if you're an award winner.
Yeah, that's right. You can hold up the trophy. Excellent.
All right, take care.
We'll see you.
Take care.
Be well.
There you go. Yeah, Signal Awards or any kind of awards is always kind of fun.
It's funny they brought that up because I just got this question at work. Somebody was like, hey, should we apply our podcast for awards? I was like, I mean, we just were talking about this like this week. So interesting that would come up here on the show. And I think we kind of decided, no, probably not. I mean, it's work, Dave.
They're a lot of work.
It's work. Yeah. I mean, and it really is. I mean, it is paid advertising, right? And it's like almost like paid advertising in using a lottery system where you're paying and then, okay, it might pay off, it might not. I mean, I was looking at a couple of the award shows that are coming up. It's 150 to 250 to $300 a category. And you just kind of like, well, would that money be better spent in advertising on in that podcast player? I'm forgetting the name of Overcast.
Yeah.
Something or something along those lines. Money better spent, maybe other places. I don't know. It's a good question.
Speaking of money spent, holy cow! Look who's in the house. The ones and only Bang's Naughty Bits. Holy cow! Thank you for the super chat. He says, announcing the first annual Reddit r/podcasting, which is where we get a lot of our questions. The one and only Bang's Naughty Bits. So thank you, kind sir. I appreciate that.
The search for more money.
That's right.
Hey, exactly. I'll give you an award. Send me, just go ahead and head out to my that's my Patreon, and we'll make you an award winner.
Yeah. Jody says, do you remember when you could submit your podcast or your website for an award that would be a nice shiny graphic that you could put on your website? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. You're like, ooh, that's always fun. Let me get back to, we had some questions come in here. This is a fun one. If you're in my shoes, running a faith-based daily financial podcast with strong convictions and practical advice, how would you grow your audience beyond the church crowd without watering down? First things I would do, start with your own church. I would talk to the pastor there.
I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying start your own church.
No. Well, that works too. But I would start with your pastor and go, hey, I'm not trying to sell to the congregation. I want you to partner with me. Give me some feedback on how I could get my information. Do you, someone, Mr. Pastor, Mrs. Pastor, whoever is in this, know of something? Get somebody in the churchy thing, because I forget what I was just reading. They're like, always start with your local network. Like, we all try to get that. We're going to get 8 million people. It's like, maybe just start local. Who do you know that might be able to help? So that would be the first one. Also, beyond the church crowd, your audience isn't like, if I play your show to an atheist, and the minute you go, in 2 Timothy 3:12, they're done. They're like, I didn't tune in for this. So I wouldn't waste my time on people that aren't your target audience, and not the church crowd is not your audience here. He says, I'm consistently producing high quality episodes. His production is good. I would go back to your survey and see what they're saying. But even that, I'm listening to a book now about asking mom. Remember I always say, don't ask mom? And somebody actually wrote a book on that, like how to get honest feedback from people. I just started it. But growth is slow. Welcome to podcasting. Growth in podcasting, the whole industry is 5% a year, something like that. What's the one blind spot most podcasters missed when their content is solid? You just said it. I don't need to work on my content. Then why isn't your show growing? But I don't need to work on my content. I hear that all the time. And then I go listen to it, and it's not as, and here's the thing, like, this show is good. Is this show great? It's good. It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun. And, but the numbers aren't moving. Go back and look at 6 months ago and see what your numbers are. I did this with the School of Podcasting. And because in Captivate, you can say, show me an episode, and it will do this little like graph thingy. And I said, show me the first 14 days. And I could see where actually my older shows were getting more downloads in the first 14 days than my new shows. And I was like, huh. And in fact, I'm probably going to, somewhere in the next maybe 2 months, because I want to promote it a lot. I want to promote a Come Pick Dave Apart party. And I just want honest feedback. Like, if you're giving me positive stuff, I'm here. Like, what would you like to hear in my show kind of thing? And I might not get anybody, but I was like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, if my show's not growing, I look at it and go, it's the content. because it's not the production, it's not the lighting. I'm like, it's the content. And so everybody that, and that's the thing, everybody that says, I don't understand why my show is growing, always says the phrase, my content is amazing. And I'm like, okay. And then I go, why do you say that? And they go, well, because I've got 17 reviews from friends and family in Apple. So I don't know. Is there something else, Jim? I just know for me, and I'm really studying this now, when I share something or somebody shares something with me, because that's what we want. Like, why? Why am I sharing this? And a lot of it so far in my whatever week and a half of doing this is how the content makes you feel is what, because 70%, according to Jacobs Media, of podcasts are grown by people sharing the show. Because like if my friend that I've known since I was 10 share something in a text message to me, I'm clicking on it every time. No hesitation. Oh, wow, Scott send me something, click. If I see somebody on Twitter that I don't really know, hey, I thought this show was good, probably not going to click on it. So it's, and I found that it's either, like this sounds so stupid, but I bought my brother, who's a very organized person, a battery organizer. Why? Because I knew how it would make him feel. But I also couldn't wait to give it to him because I knew it was going to work. So I was excited to give it to him. So again, it was all about feeling. And so, in fact, Ralph was nice enough to buy me some coffees for a show I did. I do a show called Feeding My Faith. And why did he give me coffee? Because of the way the episode made him feel. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Am I making any sense? I feel like I've rambled on for about 10 minutes.
No, you're fine. Listen, it is the content, right? I mean, that's part of, if the content's not there, that's like table stakes, right? The content's not there for people or what they're looking for in the moment. Yeah. But I also think, people follow people, and there's just people who create followings. You think of like a guy like Dave Ramsey, right? Now,
right.
Dave Ramsey's podcast was an overnight success, 10 years or 20 years in the making. Like, Dave's been around a long time. I think in that same space, Larry Burkett, who wrote books and did a lot. I mean, they did a lot of groundwork. And then when the podcasting stuff came around, boom, they jumped on, and they were I think of a guy like Chuck Swindoll, who was doing he was mailing cassette tapes to people.
Yeah.
Right. In his, and then radio work. And then, so I think a part of it is personality too, of being a person that people want to follow. Right. That's you go, you gotta be in that space where people, you become a personality that people want to follow. Now, I always say, be careful what you wish for in that space, because I think a lot of people want a lot of people to follow them, and then that happens, and we see what happens with folks they come to stardom, and then their life implodes. And we always think, oh, why did that happen? Well, it's pressure. And when everybody's commenting on the way you look, or the way you dress, or what you do,
yeah.
When people are taking, think about, I cannot imagine being in Taylor Swift's shoes and having everyone comment on everything about it, right? And everybody, I could handle that. No, you can't.
No,
actually, you can't. No, you would absolutely implode. Most people do. Most people can't handle that. So anyways, that being said, I think a part of this equation is also your personality. And do you have, and I'll say this, not just to you, Ralph, but generally for all podcasters, do you have an attractive personality that people are drawn to for whatever reason? Sometimes that's for good reasons, and sometimes it's for bad reasons, right? It's not always for genuineness. But do you have that personality? When John Lee Dumas took off, he had a very attractive personality that people wanted to follow. He was doing some things that people said, yes, I want to follow this. What were they? Well, I mean, he was having success on his numbers and his podcasting. He was very transparent about the way he did it. It's not like he hid that, but he
Right.
did it. He was successful. He hustled. He did the work.
He hustled.
Do all those things guarantee success? No,
No.
they don't. You can do all those things right. You can pay, you can, you can have the personality, you can have the content. It doesn't guarantee it, but you got to be doing those things for it to, I always used to tell folks when I was out recruiting for work, I'd say, I can guarantee only one thing. If you don't apply, we won't hire you. That's the only thing I can guarantee. You have to, so you got to be in the space doing it.
And he says, my numbers have grown 10x in the past year. I'm like, I would love that. I'll take it. When you start in the basement and the second floor is progress, but that's quite frustrating. Why is it frustrating? You're not in the basement anymore. So this is a lot of times we look where we want to be and we forget to look where we came from. So
Ralph also says, he says, I guess I'm questioning my decision to niche down in Christian finance instead of just speaking about finance. You could, except you're going to jump from, and I won't call it a lake, it's because Christian finance is a big space. There's a lot of big names in that. You go general finance, oh man, now you're jumping into the ocean.
Right.
I mean, you're competing against big players with big money. And so would that make it better? No, I don't think so. I think if you can make it in one, you can make it in the other. Is it the content that's holding you back? I don't know. Maybe you're going to need to look at that. Have you struck it the right balance with the personality and in you, and people have to want to follow you. That's what they have to want to do. And are you creating content in a way that people want to follow you? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. And
are you a personality that can do that?
And with a daily show, do you listen to any daily show?
I do. Yeah, I do.
I listen to one daily show. No, two. I listen to James Cridlin and I listen to The Newsworthy. But even that's another show that has added another episode. Why? Because she makes a living on advertising. And she also made the show longer so she could add more advertising. So she's kind of like, I don't need the extra episode because it's a Saturday special. And it's Money Monday is the thing. Now, before we get to Money Monday, here's another thing about why I wear Spanx or whatever the thing is. And I'm like, okay, I kind of tuned in for the news. I don't really want Money Monday. But that's me. It's a survey of one.
I don't think frequency matters. If you're saying things that people want to listen to, they will find ways to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right. They will find the time to listen to it. But it has to be compelling and it has to be interesting and people have to want to listen to it. I mean, I listen to the Wall Street Journal does they do 2 podcasts a day. Why do I listen to them? Because they do a nice job of summarizing the news in 12 minutes. It's what I like. Right. I'll give it 12 minutes every day. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon. So you have to, people have, you got, if you're going to lead and people need to follow. I think it's
yeah. Stephanie brings up a point. He did go through a name change as well.
Yeah.
That can be, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Chris Nessie says Dave and Daniel talked about making content that's shareable. It's what do you want people to walk away with? Like that's my old teaching background. You have an outcome at the end of this class, the student will be able to, and then your content is based on that kind of thing. So if you can give them something to either understand or it's tough. It really is. Growing a podcast is not easy. And, go in and look at your completion rates. I had somebody this week that their completion rate was under 10%. And they go, well, what does that mean? And I go, that means that, if your show is 100 minutes, they stop after 8. And they go, well, what's good? And I said, well, I'm an old teacher. I go, a C is 70. I go, B is 80, A is 90. And I looked at mine and I go, look, mine are 70, 72, but I also had a couple 68s and 65s and 55. I saw 55. I was like, that's when I was like, hey, I think it's time to have let's give Dave some feedback time, because I'm not super ecstatic about getting C's. C's for me are average, and I don't want average. I want at least 80s, but I have advertising in the middle. I have segments, and I started doing all my dynamic stuff. Where am I going to be in the question of the month towards the end of the session? Well, if you've already heard those, it's a really easy way to eject out, and there goes your completion percentage. And that's where I go, do people need to hear where I'm going to be every week? Maybe not, So it's, but the bottom, in fact, I have a question that somebody brought in. Let me see if I can find that. But they were saying, what should I do? Yeah, how do I end an episode? Was the question they asked. They said, let's see. Hi, everyone. Thank you for existing. We launched our new podcast. I'm 90% happy with it. We end with a short trailer for the next episode. Not a bad idea. And initially, I just let it end there. Okay, definitely say your podcast website. We've already done the end credits, and so I'm thinking this might be video. And thanks, and the wee bit of outro music, and then there's the coming next on, and I have the awesome quote over some good music, and then what? Initially, I just let it end, but I hated it. Then I put a funny podcast-related quote at the end, and I hated it. What's the best way to signal, that's all, folks, without being abrupt or just ending? To me, I'm like, if you don't know what to say at the end of this show, ask them to share it with a friend. If you don't know what to do, that's always a good call to action in my book, and do it slowly, specifically, and confidently that, hey, please do this kind of thing versus, if you want to, like my website is .com, no, like do it. I don't know. How do you end Home Gadget Geeks?
Actually, all the shows I do, I always say, and with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
There you go.
That's
kind of cool, because there's no, because the minute on the School of Podcasting, the minute I hint that the show is over, they're gone. It's just a waterfall. And so I need to I like that, because you don't let them know it's ending. It's just, oh, and by the way, bye, and then say, I'd always say your website. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you always, hey, I want to thank you for coming out today. Don't forget we have this and that and these and things. Love to see you next week. Join us on the live show. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Just fade it out. It doesn't have to be hard on that one. By the way, I don't think most people make it to the end anyway. Like,
right.
I'd spend my time on the beginning as opposed to the end on that. I mean, you're going to make it to the end because you're going to edit it, but I don't think most people get there. I don't think it matters as much as you think it does. I watch a lot of YouTubers and it just stops.
Yeah.
And I don't go, oh, that was terrible. I just go to the next video. So sometimes I don't even I know, like you said, I know they're starting to wrap it up, and I know their gig at the end. I know how to contact them. I know how to do stuff with them. So hey, your email, I just want to make sure I got this right. Cause Lead with Jim in chat was asking, you're Dave at schoolpodcasting.com, right? If folks want to contact you, is that right?
Not my favorite email, but that works. Yes.
What's your favorite email?
Schoolofpodcasting@gmail.com. The reason for that is I used to love Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. And then when I switched to ConvertKit, now known as Kit, I had to put a real email address in there. They wouldn't let Gmail. And to say just a tsunami of spam, I always tell people, I'm like, you can use that one. And I spend, 15 minutes deleting spam. And I use hey.com for that to check it. And it has a thing where I'm like, nope, don't want that. Nope. And it's supposed to block those people in the future. And so far it's not. So, or just go to schoolofpodcasting.com/contact. Gary Arndt is in the house. Everything everywhere daily. I'm about to hit my 50 millionth download. Come on.
Wow. Nice.
Come on now. I spent almost 2 years producing my show every single day before I could really say I had success. Few people would stick with it that long. Yeah, Gary, my favorite quote from Gary, he's got many. He's been on the School of Podcasting multiple times. He and Scott Johnson are like mad scientists. They're always trying things and reporting, and they report back. That's the thing I love. And I remember when he's getting 1 million downloads a month, I think it was, if I remember right. And he said, I can't do this and do social media. So he quit all of his social media. And I was like, holy cow, what happened? And he was like, nothing. It didn't affect downloads at all. And I was like, oh, that answers that question that I've kind of thought for a long time. Chris Stone has a great point. Identify the key indicators of success. Your goals is what everyone needs to do when they do this, especially in niches. If you're doing this for downloads, settle in for the long haul. And the only reason you do it for downloads, in my opinion, besides your ego, is for ads. And I'm like, if you're an entrepreneur, you've already got your sponsor. It's you. So, but yeah, I always give the example. In February, my numbers come down because everybody wanted to start a podcast in January, but my membership goes up. So if I went on downloads, I'd be just depressed, but I'm not. My numbers go up for memberships in February. So you have to know why you're doing it. And then sometimes I was listening to Pat Flynn's book, Lean Learning. And so let's say you're like, well, I don't know. It'd be great if I could just get, let's say 5,000 downloads. Then I would be happy. Great. How would your life change with 5,000 downloads? Mm-hmm. Would you get sponsors or like, well, okay. Here's my magic wand, 10,000 downloads. Like what in your life is different? And I think, and I've almost done an episode on this multiple times. I think the reason why people want sponsorships isn't the money, much like awards. It's the validation that you're good. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. But on the other hand, you've got download numbers that say you're good. And anything over 20 is bigger than a classroom of people who meet every week to come and listen to your stuff. But yeah, you do have to know your goals and why you're doing it. And how are you going to measure your success? That's the one that most people, that's the blind spot, Ralph. How are you going to measure your success? Because everybody goes downloads. And I'm like, okay, so if you had, again, 10,000 downloads, I'd get sponsors. Okay. So you do realize you're going to make 0.005 cents per download. So that's whatever, yeah, it's kind of tricky. Lead with Jim. Do you guys ever do a consult? This is it right here, buddy. But
yeah, I was responding to his question.
And if you join the school, in fact, if you join the School of Podcasting, you get unlimited consulting for one low price. Let's see what else is going on.
Dave, hold on. Before we move on, let me say one more thing on that subject, because I think this is really, really important, and I think we miss it most of the time. Is that in what we do with our podcasts, people really, what they're really looking for most of the time, besides their biases being confirmed, right? They want to hear you say things that make them feel good about the way they think, right? There's that point, but most, in a lot of cases, we make it way too complicated, right? We'll go back to Dave Ramsey. What do we know about Dave Ramsey? The baby steps, right? Baby steps. Baby step. Every show, baby steps. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, right? He didn't try, I mean, he had a lot of content, but it always evolved around a very consistent message in what he's doing. Okay, so you like, but what about Rogan? Well, Rogan's trick is his style, right? He has this particular, he's very curious. He goes deep on these various subjects. He's a great interviewer. He asks really good questions. It's his style, right? I think sometimes we try to be all things to all people in our podcasts. I mean, I know I'm guilty of this sometime on Home Gadget Geeks, but I like the variety, so I go with it. but I think the simplicity, if we're trying to teach people things, or we're trying to be a teaching or a learning podcast, I think you have to keep repeating things. You have to have a hook, right? Something people come in for, stay there, and then you have to keep repeating those things. It's a little counterintuitive because we get sick of saying those things over and over and over and over. We do this every show, actually. You and I do this. We say the same things all the time. But you got to be consistent with those, because those people are only hearing it for the first time, right? And then they need to hear it again, and they need to hear it again. That's the hook. So you got to find that hook to bring, hey, if you're going to do this, and that hook if you're going to get large numbers, that hook has to be a wide enough net to even be able to get those people. The more you niche down, the smaller the net is going to be, just because there's not that many people that are that interested in that. And so you got to kind of think, hey, what's the biggest possible audience that I could get with my topic? And realize as the net gets wider, the competition gets harder, because there's already people out there doing it in that space, and they're throwing a lot of money at it, and they're throwing a lot of talent at it. So I think we forget sometimes that we just need to be clear on our value proposition and the hook of why people need to be there. And then we need to be repetitive. Listen, I've done a show for Gallup for 10 years, and we say the same things all the time, and people love it, because you know why? Because we say the same things all the time. So I think that consistency.
When I was at Chicago, Greg from RSS.com made a great point. He goes, you're not a podcast, you're a brand, and you are known for what you're known for. He goes, people know you for what you're known for. And he's like, so, you're right. We do say the same thing. I'm known for hating Spotify because they suck. I'm known for saying YouTube is not a podcast because it's not. And then it's, content. So the other thing, Ralph, I would advise here, he says, my coach is telling me that it's not about the content so much. I don't listen to any show that the content sucks. I would fire that guy. In fact, Ralph, if I had one thing, and I say this with love, too many cooks in the kitchen doesn't always make a great stew. And Ralph, I know Ralph's a member of the School of Podcasting, so I might get fired. We'll see. But too many coaches can, when you got one going, you need more red, and the other person's going red, purple. And you're like, well, I'm kind of feeling blue. I think my audience wants blue, red, blue, purple. And you're like, well, I don't know which way to go. So pick a coach and do what they say. Do what they say. Not like, oh, I'll take it under consideration. Do what they say. You hired a coach for their experience and their knowledge. It drives me bonkers when I get hired and people go, well, I think my show is great. And then I go, okay, well, here's like quantifiable things. You did this, this was confusing. If your audience doesn't know this lingo, so that might be on me, blah, blah, blah. And then they continue to do the same thing that they just admitted is not growing their show. And I'm like, that's the definition of insanity. And again, I don't know everything. So I might go, hey, try this, go get switchy.io or Bitly, track what's working and what's not, do what's working. When I listen to interviews with Mr. Beast, the most popular guy on YouTube, he watches every video he's ever done, and his goal is to increase by 1%. Like, let's make this video 1% better than the last one. And then he looks at like, well, was the hook good? Was the content relatable? Was it, whatever? But I like right now, I hired a business coach, one. And when he said, you need to do this, I did it. And, I learned some stuff. I learned a lot of things, really. I learned one by making a mistake. That was fun. So you either win or you learn. That's really the thing. But if I had another coach telling me, oh, that's not how you write a welcome sequence, you've got to include this, then you're just introducing confusion. And for me, Jim, you work with coaches. Isn't the goal of the coach to hear what you want and then put you on a path to get it? that will help you avoid the common mistakes, right? Isn't that kind of what the role of a coach?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you
Yeah.
have two
But there are
coaches,
yeah, well, to Ralph's point though, he likes a diversity of voices around him, right? People, and there's there's some merit in that system of listening to a bunch of different people and then doing your thing, right? Listen, oftentimes, you and I work in a system of beliefs, and what we think may not always necessarily be what's best, right? For in his situation. And so, that's another way to do it. It's another way to do it as well.
yeah.
Um,
Randy Cantrell, pick a horse and ride it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie says out there, how do you know when it's time to revisit a topic on your podcast? I was talking about repeating things and saying things. When do you repeat info? Dave, you and I, if we really wanted to follow a model like this, you and I would have a system that we talk about. And when, like, you would have a startup system and you and I would come and say, so people would ask us questions and we'd say, well, okay, this is the Ramsey methodology. Let's work our way through what we always say, baby step, right? Oh, that's his way. Baby step number 1, baby step number 2, right? Those kinds of things. To keep it more consistent. So people really start to lean on it. Then they start to do it and have some success. They tell others, right? That's the thing. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're a success guru, the best advertising you have is actually someone who's been successful with your model that you have, and they'll definitely tell other people, oh yeah, I lost weight this way, or oh yeah, I saved money that way, or oh yeah, I'm better because of this. I mean, Grammar Girl makes people better at grammar, right? So but it's a repetitive coming back to the same things and grounding people in whatever the methodology is.
Yeah. The fun part is, I mean, there is kind of a cookie cutter, right? Have content you can't get anyplace else that resonates with your audience, delivered in a fun, professional way. That's the ingredients of a good podcast. Simple, yes. Easy, no. And then it's a matter of getting people to find it, which is a whole other thing. And Ralph says, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack. No, that's almost the name of this episode. We should just change it to Hijack the Podcast Show. That's what we want.
No, but yeah, by the way, that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, we want people to ask questions. Yeah, if we don't, we're back to Reddit questions, and those are, how do I grow my show? What's the best microphone? Who's the best host? Which, by the way, I saw this morning. And a lot of people feel this way. Yeah, and so it's tricky. I do need to I'm going to blow through this today like nobody's business. This show is brought to you by. Well, first of all, thanks to our awesome supporters. They are awesome, by the way. We'll be talking about them later in the show. But we're always thankful for everyone that helps support the show. We deeply appreciate it. And I forget who the guy's name was that was asking about unlimited consulting. He said, scrolling up, so much for blowing through this quickly. Oh, there he is. Lead with Jim. Go to theschoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code COACH, and you get unlimited coaching. And you're like, what does that look like? That means, like, here's my calendar. Find a time that fits. Or if you're like Nicola Beer, she is in someplace in Asia. We talk almost every day on an app I use called Volley. So there's that. Chuck was talking about his podcast earlier and his website. Check out trypodpage.com for making a great podcast website. If you need more Jim Collison, and who doesn't need more Jim Collison, then go over to theaverageguy.tv. You know what? I'm not even going to talk about that because I put that up there because I thought I was going to dive into it and haven't really. But it is time for I need to get some special effects on this. The Wheel of Names, as we thank one of our awesome supporters here that are on the $20 level. We appreciate that a lot. So is it going to be Shane from Spybrary, York from Welcome to Earth Stories, Randy from Shooting It Straight? Dang, son. Who's it going to be? It's going to be, well, there you go. Randy Black, Shooting Straight Podcast. It's not just about basketball. It's about real life lessons. And yes, you will hear the host of that show. His kind of catchphrase is "Dang, son." And so thank you, Randy, for being an awesome supporter. I deeply appreciate that. And so if you find yourself listening to this, and again, thank you to all of our awesome supporters. You can see them by going over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And again, that is all appreciated very, very much. And if we've saved you some time, saved you some money, saved you some headaches, maybe, made you think even, kept you educated, then go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. So thank you very much for that. And I saw some other questions in here. They were at the top. Here we go. Do you think that audio podcast hosting sites that offer AI editing, will they become really restrictive on words or topics used? Good question. By the way, Riverside.fm adding media hosting to their arsenal. Now, the question is, as much as I see people go, I can't stand Riverside, do you trust them enough with your hosting files? I was like, I got an email into them going, hey, I'd love to talk about this because, do you do a 301 redirect? Are you going to be IAB certified? All that kind of fun stuff. So I'll be interested to see.
I'm not sure hosting would be a space I'd go into right now.
No.
Like, maybe they get a lot of feedback from listeners. Like, you know what? I'd like all my stuff to be in one place. I hope they got some feedback and they just didn't make that up. It just doesn't seem like podcast hosting is the place to be right now.
In the end, it's going to be now they have a thing. Like if they have that, they're literally now a one-stop shop. You record, you edit, you post. And the thing is, they're like, when you click this, we'll send it to YouTube and Spotify. And I was like, and Apple. No, it was Apple and Spotify. And probably YouTube when I think about it. But I was kind of like, it's not on their front page yet. It was in their Facebook group. So I thought that was just interesting that they're taking that step. If they start to restrict words,
because the question.
Yeah, if somebody
to the real question.
Yeah, if they start to restrict words, it's time for a new host. But then on the other hand, like there are words that we only refer to by the first letter, the R word, the N word, all those words. And I'm like, shouldn't you kind of restrict yourself from saying those unless, but if you're into free speech, and if they do, you got a microphone, go scream it to the world. I don't know, but I don't think so. I haven't heard of any of that yet because it's a transcript of what you said. So that's the tricky part. Stephanie has a question. She says, how do you know when it's time to revisit a topic on your podcast? When Jim calls and says, when they say,
we talked about this.
Yeah. I do it when I see it come up again and again and again. Like I've talked about imposter syndrome probably 3 times on my show. It's kind of tricky. And then Steph said to Ralph, go talk to Christian music, gospel music, go live in that genre so that when people think about, I need a Christian accountant. Oh, askralph.com. You got to be known for what you're known for, going back to the thing you were talking about earlier. So it just takes that. I think that's the hardest part is it just takes time of being consistent, not only in schedule, but content. Like I put out, and she's a great person and it wasn't a horrible episode, but I interviewed Tracy DeForge. And kind of what we talked about is things that we kind of always talk about. There wasn't really anything new. And looking back at that, I was like, she had one question that she told a story about a client. And I was like, I should have done more of that. I should have had her telling stories because she's been in the podcasting space forever. And I didn't have her tell enough stories about success of her clients. And I realized, quote, she's my competition, but stories always rule. And so there are times when I go back and I always try to go back and listen to an episode from 2 months ago, or I'll go back and listen to something I did a year ago. I'm always looking to like, oh, because when you hear it with fresh ears, you'll see things that are like, oh, I didn't realize I, did this or whatever it was. It's hard to, listen to your show objectively because if I listen to last week's show, I did a whole thing about Ozzy Osbourne and 15 lessons you can learn from Ozzy Osbourne. One of them is don't do drugs, kids. I listened to
Don't
his
bite the head off bats.
yeah, check to see
Was
if
that
it's a
him?
fake bet first. I
Was
listened
that
to his
him?
autobiography. Yeah, it was him.
Yeah.
He's kind of known for that. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is that guy took forever to get sober. Like you just listening to the book, like at one point he traded alcohol for Valium. And I was like, okay, you're not really sober yet. You're not drunk, but it's like, holy cow, crazy stuff. So
Life's hard. Life is hard sometimes.
it is. Here is a question that I thought it's something speaking of things we haven't talked about a lot, but finding guests. How viable are podcast matching services for potential guests? I'm wondering if services like Matchmaker and Podmatch, I made a video for on my YouTube channel because the pitch that they sent me, I would not classify as, how do they call it? Good. And I kind of said, guys, this is like, what's the deal? And they have ever since been like, oh, crap. That's not the guy you want to send a bad pitch to. But anyway, I work with decent-sized podcasts, for example, 10,000 regular listeners. Great. Is that per month or per episode? I'm guessing that podcasts don't pay for multiples of these services. Well, if you got the money, it's difficult to judge the viability of their portfolios. And so this is another one. You just got to try. I use podcast singular, guess, plural, and I also use Podmatch. Now, Blueberry is getting ready to launch their own service. But what I do for these is I go in, I know who I'm trying to get in front of, and I'm doing it right now just as I want to be a guest. Because when I turned on the light that said I'm looking for guests, the onslaught of people that did not read what I'm looking for was insane. And I'm like, homie ain't got no time for that. I'm like, you're gone. Next. So I'm going in there looking to be a host. And if it's not an absolute yes, that's my audience, I skip it. But it takes time. And this is where I go back to, you have two forms of currency, time or money. Use the one you have the most of. But in the end, you kind of have to put the time in. Because I had a guy that contacted me yesterday, and I will pretty much be on anybody's show. And I've been on his show twice, and I will probably go back again. But it's not really my target audience. And I'm just going to stop there. It's just one of those where I'm like, this is not a great fit. And I've already been on your show twice. But again, I always say the biggest takeaway from interviews is the relationship. And we've already got that. Kim says, how's your leg, Kim? Kim had a problem. I think she broke her leg, if I remember right. I haven't posted a podcast in years, and I still get these letters about finding guests for me. Yeah.
Once you're on the list, you're gonna get those emails for sure.
Yeah. Chris Stone says, I highly recommend Podmatch. Yeah, out of the ones that are out there, the thing I love about Podmatch is Alex Sanfilippo will kick you out if you're not using the service. Because if you're not, like, he doesn't want people to go, hey, want to be on my show? And then you never answer or whatever. So I love that. And Kim says her leg is still broken. He goes, it makes it easy to find guests for our show at work. We developed a quick process to swipe through matches and pitches. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's you get out of those what you put into them. And I've found some decent places to be. The other thing that for me is I have found podcasts about podcasting that I didn't know about, which I then go, hey, who are you promoting when it comes to websites? And I'm like, have you ever heard of Podpage? So that's after we kind of go back and forth. So yeah, I like Podmatch. I like Alex. I just like the way he runs it. And then I forget which plan you can get on where you actually get paid to use their service because you're bringing in new people that didn't know about it. he's just an overall really nice guy, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like his service. But it's one of those things where they also kind of gamify it. Where like every day, I think I get 6 matches, and so I'll go in and go through them, and yes, no, 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 yes, yes, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna go find some more people, and then they'll email you like, hey, we found 6 more people. And you're like, okay. And then it's kind of like, woo, yay. They just have these things where they have a list of people that are the most interviewed. And you're like, how do I get on the list? So all sorts of little gamification things that you can get there to do. So
I still think the best way as we bring this thing in for a landing here in a few minutes, I think the best way on the guest side of things is when you find a good guest, you have to ask them if they've got, hey, do you know others that you trust that you'd make a recommendation on as being a guest? And I think those are gold. Like the recommend, not every single one, but I think you're the odds of getting a better guest when you're getting a recommendation from somebody else to say, who else should I interview in this space? Who do you know that you think would be willing to be on the show? Those kinds of things. Those are great. Oftentimes, those are really, really good recommendations. So don't forget to ask if you've got a guest on. Also, I think we make this mistake all the time. We get a really good guest, and then we think like, well, one is done, right? Why would you not have them back?
Yeah.
Like we think there's this this idea that it's got to be one and done. Oh, no, I already burned through them. They can't ever be on again, ever. No, can't ever have them. Nope, they've been on before. No, man, get that person back. If they were popular, if they had good info, if they've got more things to say, bring them back for sure and get them on as soon as possible. You don't have to wait a year or 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, get them in the rotation. If they're really talented, and I've got a few on Home Gadget Geeks, I've got some co-hosts now that are just dynamite. I'm on once a quarter, every other month. Like, why wouldn't I? So don't fall into the trap of one and done. I can't ever have them again. How soon would I have the guests back, Stephanie? The next show, if I could. If they're that good, don't use them until they get sick of it and they start saying no. If they're good, keep having them on. Bring them back.
Courtney Elmer does something cool where she'll do however long her interview is, and it's really 2 interviews, and then in the middle she'll say, and she lets you know that she's going to do this, and you say goodbye, and then she's like, hey, Jim, thanks for coming back to the show. And Jim goes, thanks, great to be here. And they continue it on. And then she uses that. She basically records 2 episodes back to back with the same person in one shot. I've had Glenn the Geek back, I think 5 times on my show.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And
that's money. That is money. Glenn the Geek is money for you.
When Glenn says, I think I got something, he doesn't have to ask. I'm like, no, just here's the link.
Sure.
So sure. That's great advice. So speaking of coming back, we will be back next week, but Glenn, Jim, what's coming up on
sorry. Hey, being confused for Glenn. Don't be boring. It's not bad. It's not bad. Not a bad thing. Gavin Campbell joins me this week on Home Gadget Geeks. We spend a little time. I give a little solar. I've been working on some solar power stuff for the studio here. So give a little update on that. And then we do some home automation stuff. Gavin's great at that. And he talks about his robot lawnmower as well, which he's been testing all spring. Nice. You can check it out today, homegadgetgeeks.com.
Yep. See, you hint that we're over. Randy's gone already. He's like, happy Saturday, everybody. Kim Craggy, what is the link to Toastmasters? Because on the School of Podcasting, we're talking about how to stop saying, kind of like, that kind of stuff. And somebody, the first responder said, I joined Toastmasters. And here's a case. You're known for what you're known for. The minute I hear Toastmasters, I think Kim Craggy, because she's upper level Toastmaster kind of person. And so
all about brand.
It is. So we're talking about that on the show this week, how to overcome all those filler words and things like that. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to Ralph. Thanks to Chuck. Thanks to Dan over at Based on a True Story podcast and Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Hope we made you think. Hope we made you laugh or cry or think or, I don't know, groan, something like that. But we will be here next week. I know one of these weeks I'm at Podcast Movement. We'll talk about that next week on if I will be around the third week or not. But that's coming up. So, yes, I'm going to guess Toastmasters.com. I don't know, but we've run out of music. So I'll put it in the show notes. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.